The Democrats assume they have a tight hold on the gay and lesbian vote, just like they assume they own the black vote and women's votes. But none of that may be true anymore. People aren't just single-issue voters. The principles of small government, of free market, of individual liberty, and strong national defense are more important in the minds of most voters than birth control or gay marriage. But with Donald Trump holding tight to his status as frontrunner for the Republican nomination, the Log Cabin Republicans, the largest gay Republican group, want to know where Trump does stand on gay marriage. They released a video asking him. Take a look.
The head of the Log Cabin Republicans, the gay Republican group, says that Donald Trump will be the most pro-gay Republican presidential candidate that we have out there.
When President Trump is in office, can we look for more forward motion on equality for gays and lesbians?
Well, you can. We have to bring all people together.
I don't think you care about gay marriage. I think you're all for it.
People are changing a lot on that argument, and I'm not saying I wouldn't change at all.
It's a conversation that more and more people are having, and anything can happen.
The Supreme Court makes a decision. That's the law of the land, right?
The decision's been made, and that is the law of the land.
There are evangelicals out there that want to be able to trust you on traditional marriage and other
I think they
marriage.
can trust me. They can trust me on traditional marriage.
Joining me now is president of the Log Cabin Republicans, Gregory T. Angelo. Gregory, great to have you on.
Thanks for having me on, Liz.
So in this video, Trump showed some differing positions. On one hand, he said he would be a very pro-gay president. On the other hand, he said evangelicals could trust him on traditional marriage. What specifically are you looking for to hear from him?
Yeah. Well, we'd like clarification. Clearly, we'd like to hear that he would, if not support marriage equality, certainly do no harm to the thousands of same-sex couples who are now allowed to engage in civil marriage partnerships. I mean, this man has been to a gay wedding. He, through The Celebrity Apprentice, has friendships with George Takei and Clay Aiken, and it just came out last week, he gave $30,000 to gay charities through the Trump Foundation. But at the same time, he has said that he would strongly consider appointing Supreme Court justices that would overturn marriage equality. I don't know if strongly consider is, if you'd consider a really definitive statement, but nonetheless he has said that. And he has also started having very close associations with people like Tony Perkins and the Family Research Council, Jerry Falwell Jr. and others. And I think, it's possible to have a balance between gay rights and religious liberty, and for the gay community and Christian evangelicals to potentially come together to support a candidate. But before Log Cabin Republicans will put any formal support behind a Trump campaign, or any candidate for that matter, we need clarification on those issues in particular.
Now, you've communicated directly with Donald Trump. Has he responded to you?
He hasn't. That's one of the reasons why we put this video out last week, to hopefully elevate this question, not just in front of Mr. Trump himself, but also the voters who I think deserve to know an answer to this question. It's important to point out that I had written and reached out to the Trump campaign back in November of last year. Now, I realize campaigns are often hectic, that schedules are really tight, and that there's a political calculus that goes into all of this. However, considering the runaway momentum that Mr. Trump has had lately, and the fact that the primary clock is really ticking down, I think it's important that we get some resolution to these questions sooner rather than later.
Sure. Now, let me ask you about your position, because you're a Republican. You're president of the Log Cabin Republicans, and it's a traditionally Republican view to support traditional marriage, not gay marriage. What is your position on government recognizing traditional marriage versus same-sex marriage?
Well, we've long lobbied for civil marriage equality. It's important to point out civil marriage equality, right? What Log Cabin Republicans has long advocated for is not coercing any church or minister to have to solemnize any sort of ceremony that they don't wish to. But in the eyes of the government, there were genuine inequalities that existed for committed same-sex couples. We filed an amicus brief with the Supreme Court encouraging them to come to the conclusion that there is a constitutional right to civil marriage equality. And so in that regard, we have been advocates for marriage equality. It's important to point out, long before Democrats were advocates for marriage equality, at a time when Democrats thought that marriage was a, quote, bourgeois institution, that the gay community should be fighting for sexual liberation, Log Cabin Republicans was merely advocating for assimilation into society, having a quiet life where we're able to have families and raise those families with the protections and rights and responsibilities that come with marriage. That's a conservative position. It's a family values position.
Does government establishing gay marriage, though, with all the financial benefits that comes with it, does that contradict the idea of small government? Because that is an expansion of government's reach into our lives.
Well, I understand that. I think it's important to point out as well that I had the honor of being the chairman of Log Cabin Republicans of New York State prior to my present position, where we achieved marriage equality legislatively for the first time in a Republican-controlled legislature. Now, having said that, once I came to Washington, D.C. to head up Log Cabin Republicans, it's very difficult, if you're heading up an advocacy organization, to tell a same-sex couple who have been together for 40 years, 30, 40, sometimes almost 50 years, to tell them that they just need to be patient. People who might not be around that much longer and who just wanted to make sure that when they pass away, their partner of decades would be taken care of. And so in that regard, we did support the Supreme Court's ultimate conclusion from last June.
All right, liberals criticize gay people in general if they're conservative, almost more so. The tolerance for gay people being conservative is less than any bigotry out there that you can find, almost. Tell us, why are you conservative?
Yep. I'm conservative. It's simple, really. It's the exact mission of Log Cabin Republicans. Myself and Log Cabin Republicans are LGBT Republicans and straight allies who support free markets, limited government, a strong national defense, and equality for all Americans. I think that there are better solutions to the challenges that we face in our country together than looking to government for all of our answers. And this is a message that's resonating throughout the country and throughout our membership, and it has since 1977. Our organization's been around almost 40 years. Clearly, there has been an appetite among at least some members of the LGBT community for conservative principles.
All right, well, let me ask you this then. Who defines the narrative that Republicans in general, conservatives, even religious people, who defines the narrative that Republicans don't support gay people rather than the fact that Republicans sometimes don't support expanding government to support gay marriage? Because that's two entirely different things. You cannot support gay marriage as established by the government, the federal or the state, without being bigoted or hateful towards gay people. Who defines that narrative?
That's a really simple question. It's Democrats and the liberal media. What it comes down to at the end of the day, the differences between Democrats and Republicans, in my view, is a simple question. What is the role of government in our lives? What should the role of government be in our lives? Both parties' political ideologies grow out from their respective answers to that question. And I'm the first guy out there who will say, if you are a Republican and you don't feel that the government has a right and responsibility to even engage in the marriage business in the first place, right? A lot of libertarian-leaning Republicans have that perspective. It doesn't mean you're automatically a bigot. I know good people, principled people, who might not support marriage equality, but also understand that me getting married to someone of the same sex is no threat to them, their family, or their faith.
Right, and that's I think what's important to note in this whole debate, that Republicans forget a lot of times to defend ourselves against being accused of being anti-gay, against gay people versus being against gay marriage. And I appreciate, Gregory, you coming on the show to have this conversation with me. It was great to talk to you. After the break, my favorite Democratic sparring partner, Franco Ripple, is back, and we'll talk about the Democratic town hall meeting last night and who's going to win the 357 delegates in Ohio and Florida tomorrow. That's in a minute.